I told my husband he wasn't man enough to fuck me the way I needed, and I meant every word when I said it. Everyone thinks I'm the villain who ended a decade-long marriage over a sex act. They're wrong about why I said it, but not about the damage I caused. My daughter calls her stepmother Mom now. My best friend testified against me in court. I lost my job, my house, and every mutual friend. But what they don't understand is that I would burn it all down again. The truth is worse than the rumor, and I'm the only one who knows why those 7 words were the kindest thing I could have done. I'm going to tell you about the video I found, about the boy in the basement, about why I chose to look like a cheating wife instead of the protector I was trying to be. But first, you need to understand what everyone thinks they know. Mark and I met when I was 22, a year out of college, working my first real job at a marketing firm. He was the graphic designer who made everything beautiful. He had these big hands that moved with precision, creating art from nothing. I fell for the way he could make a logo feel like a love letter. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony at his parents' farmhouse. His mother made the cake. His brother Jake, 15 at the time, played guitar so badly that everyone laughed. That was the last time I remember Mark laughing freely. The last time his eyes crinkled at the corners without a shadow behind them. Our daughter Emma came 3 years later. Mark was a good father at first. He changed diapers, lost sleep, sang lullabies. But something shifted when Emma turned 2 and Mark lost his job at the design studio. The economy crashed, portfolios became digital, and suddenly Mark's meticulous hand-drawn concepts were quaint. He took a job managing inventory at a warehouse. The hands that created art started counting boxes. He stopped sketching, stopped laughing, stopped seeing friends. His world shrank to the size of our suburban cul-de-sac. By the time Emma was 6, Mark had become a ghost who occupied space. I was 32, pulling 70-hour weeks as a creative director. I'd come home to find him in the basement, watching Jake play video games, not talking, just existing in proximity to someone else's life. Jake had moved in with us after his freshman year of college. His dorm situation fell through, and Mark insisted. Family takes care of family, he'd said. I agreed because Jake felt like the only thing Mark still cared about. The first hint I should have caught came on a Tuesday in March. I came home early with takeout, hopping to surprise them. I heard voices from the basement, Mark's low rumble and Jake's higher laugh. I paused at the top of the stairs, containers warming my hands when I caught the tone. Not uncle and nephew, something else. Mark's voice had an edge I'd never heard. You can't tell her, he was saying. She wouldn't understand. Jake's response was muffled, but I heard the word wrong. I called down that I was home, and the conversation died so fast I felt the silence in my teeth. At dinner, Jake wouldn't meet my eyes. Mark overcompensated, asking about my day in a voice too bright. Emma chattered about her school play. I watched Mark's hands, those artist's hands now slightly calloused, as he cut Emma's chicken into perfect cubes. I told myself I was being paranoid. That Mark's depression made me see shadows where there were none. I was wrong. The second hint arrived 2 weeks later. I was working late, video conferencing with a client in LA when my laptop died. I grabbed Mark's old MacBook from the bedroom, the one he never used anymore. It opened to his Photos app, synced from his phone. I wasn't snooping, really I wasn't, but the thumbnail caught my eye. Jake asleep, the angle was wrong, intrusive. My stomach turned, but my fingers moved anyway. I clicked. There were dozens of photos, Jake in the shower through fogged glass. Jake changing, unaware, not explicit but all wrong, all taken without consent. I closed the laptop, put it back, and threw up in our master bathroom. My husband was a voyeur. My nephew was his subject. I sat on the cold tile for an hour, staring at the grout lines, trying to find a path forward that didn't explode Emma's world. I didn't confront him. Couldn't. What do you say to the man you built a life with when you discover he's been stealing intimacy from a teenager? I started making calls. A therapist for Jake disguised as career counseling. A lawyer for me, discreet, female, specializes in complex custody. I documented everything. I became a woman with a secret so heavy it changed my gravity. 4 months passed. I watched Mark watch Jake. I saw the way his eyes tracked Jake's movements through the house. I noticed the times he'd linger in the hallway outside Jake's room. I counted the minutes Mark spent in the basement. Jake grew thinner, quieter. His laughter stopped entirely. He'd always been a skinny kid, but now he looked skeletal. I asked him if he was okay at breakfast one morning when Mark had already left for his early shift. Jake's spoon clattered against his cereal bowl. I'm fine, he whispered, but his hands trembled. I told him I was there if he needed anything. He looked at me with eyes so hollow I wanted to weep. The night it happened was a Friday. Mark came home from his 10-hour shift smelling like cardboard and sweat. I was already in bed, pretending to work on my laptop. He showered, came into the bedroom, and stood there in his towel. "We need to talk about our sex life," he said, and his voice had that dead quality it had carried for years. "You never want me anymore." That was his move: deflect, make me the problem, make our dead bedroom the issue instead of the truth. I closed my laptop and looked at him, really looked. At the man I'd married, at the stranger who lived in his skin. "Mark," I said carefully, "I think we need to see someone, a therapist." "You think I'm broken," he said, not a question. "I think we're both different than we were." He moved closer, sitting on the edge of the bed. His hand on my leg felt wrong, like a spider. "I miss how you used to be when you looked at me like I mattered." And something in me snapped. All those months of carrying his secret, of watching Jake fade, of being the perfect wife while my husband played predator in my own home, I couldn't carry it anymore. "You want to know why I don't want you?" I heard myself say, "Because real men don't spend their lives in basements. Real men don't need their wives to make them feel like men," and I said I'd only do anal with a real man because you haven't been one in years. The words landed like punches. Mark's face went white, then red. His hand tightened on my thigh, hard enough to bruise. "You think I'm not a real man?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I think you stopped trying to be one a long time ago." He stood up, dropped his towel. I looked away. "I'll show you what a real man does," he said, and left the room. I heard his footsteps go down the hall, past Emma's room, down the stairs. The front door slammed. I lay in the dark, shaking, wondering if I'd finally done what I meant to do, pushed him so hard he'd expose himself, or if I'd just destroyed my marriage for nothing. I found out for sure at 6 a.m. when Emma climbed into bed with me, her small body warm against my side. "Mommy," she said, "why is Uncle Jake crying in the basement?" My blood turned to ice. I went downstairs barefoot, heart hammering. Jake sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by shards of his guitar, the one he'd played at our wedding. His hands were bleeding. He looked up at me with eyes that had seen hell. "Sarah," he said, and his voice cracked. "I can't do this anymore." I told him I'd tell, about the pictures, about everything. Behind me, I heard Mark's key in the lock. Heard him walk into the kitchen, heard the rattle of papers. When I came upstairs, he was setting a stack of documents on the counter. Divorce papers, he'd already signed them. "You want a real man," he said, and his smile was a dead thing. "Let's see what a real man does when his wife commits adultery with his nephew." That's when I understood. He'd been one step ahead the whole time. The photos on the laptop, he'd left them for me to find. He'd orchestrated Jake's breakdown. He'd prepared these papers. He'd made me look like the predator, the woman who seduced a vulnerable young man and emasculated her husband. "Mark, you know that's not. Save it for court," he said. "I've got recordings. You've been so careful, Sarah, so protective." He tapped his phone. "But you didn't check the vents, didn't check his room. I've got audio of you offering to help Jake, of you calling me less than a man. Try explaining that to a judge." He walked past me down to the basement. I heard him talking to Jake in low, soothing tones. The same voice he'd used when Emma was a baby, the voice of a good man, a real man. I picked up the papers. He was asking for full custody, the house, alimony, criminal charges against me for grooming a minor. He'd documented everything. My affair with Jake, my abusive language, my neglect of Emma during my long work hours. In the space of 12 hours, I'd gone from protective wife to accused predator, from shield to sword. Jake left that afternoon. Mark drove him to the hospital for his hands, then to his parents' house. I later found out Mark told them Jake had tried to hurt himself because I'd been inappropriate, that I'd made sexual advances, and threatened to tell everyone he was the aggressor if he spoke up. His parents believed Mark. Why wouldn't they? He was the stable one, the good son. I was the career-obsessed wife who'd always seemed too ambitious for their small-town values. Emma stayed with me that weekend while Mark processed. She kept asking why Daddy was mad, why Uncle Jake was gone. I couldn't tell a 6-year-old that her father was a monster who'd been molesting his nephew for years. I couldn't tell her I'd tried to stop it and ended up looking like the villain, so I said nothing. I made macaroni and cheese. I braided her hair. I waited for the other shoe to drop. It dropped Monday morning when my HR director called me into her office. Mark had emailed them. Screenshots of my text messages to Jake taken out of context, arranged to look incriminating. My offer of help, my checking in on him, my concern, all reframed as grooming. I was placed on immediate leave pending investigation. My company laptop was confiscated, my access revoked. 10 years of building campaigns, winning awards, mentoring junior staff, gone because my husband had access to my phone while I slept. By Wednesday, I'd received notice that Mark had filed a restraining order. I couldn't go within 500 feet of Jake, which meant I couldn't go to my in-laws' house. Couldn't explain, couldn't protect. By Friday, Emma's preschool called. Mark had added his mother as an authorized pickup. She collected Emma early that day. When I arrived at normal time, Emma was gone. The director looked at me with pity and something else. Suspicion. I drove to our house, but the locks had been changed. Mark stood in the window, holding Emma, waving at me with her tiny hand. I sat in my car across the street, until a police officer tapped on my window and explained the restraining order extended to the marital residence. I had to leave. 3 weeks later, I moved into a studio apartment across town. The divorce proceedings had begun. My lawyer, the one I'd initially consulted about protecting Jake, now had to defend me against allegations of adultery and corruption of a minor. She believed me about Mark's photos, but without Jake's testimony, Jake, who was now under his parents' roof, being told I was the villain, there was no case. Mark had been careful. The photos were on a cloud account I'd accessed. The texts were from my phone. The recordings were in our home. Emma visited me twice a month under supervision. She called me Sarah, not Mommy, because Mark said that was more appropriate. She told me about her new school, about Grandma's cookies, about how Daddy was happier now. How Uncle Jake was getting better at a special school. I nodded and smiled and died inside. 6 months in, Jake tried to kill himself. Pills. His mother found him vomiting in his childhood bedroom, the same room where Mark had first started taking pictures, though I didn't know that then. Jake survived. He went to a facility. I sent a letter through my lawyer. He never responded. Mark remarried 8 months after our divorce finalized. A woman from his warehouse job, younger. Simpler, people said. Someone who'd make him feel like a real man. They posted photos on Facebook. Emma in a flower girl dress. Mark smiling like I'd never seen him smile, his hands around his new wife's waist. Hands that had held a camera, hands that had touched his nephew. I filed a complaint with Child Services, explained about the photos. They investigated, but Mark had wiped the laptop, the cloud account, everything. Without Jake's cooperation, they closed the case. Mark's new wife was pregnant within a year. Emma posted a drawing on Mark's fridge, a family portrait with 4 stick figures and a baby. Know me, now I work at a coffee shop. My hands, which once directed marketing campaigns worth millions, make lattes for teenagers. Emma is 9. She hasn't asked to see me in 3 months. My supervised visits are down to once a month because Mark claims they upset her routine. My lawyer says fight it, and I say what's the point. Last week, Jake sent me a friend request on Facebook. I accepted. His profile picture shows him in a city I've never seen, tattooed arms wrapped around a man with purple hair. He looks happy. Free. He messaged me, I'm sorry I couldn't tell them. I'm sorry you took the fall. I think about what you did every day. I wrote back, you don't have to be sorry, just be okay. He hasn't responded. I'm telling this story now because yesterday, Emma's stepmother posted a video. Emma dancing in the living room of what used to be my house. In the background, briefly, Mark walks past Jake's old bedroom. The door is ajar. I can see a sliver of the basement stairs, and I know he's still doing it, still watching, still taking. Still being the real man nobody questioned because I was so good at looking like the villain. I said I'd only do anal with a real man. I said it to wound him. I said it to shake him. I said it because I knew his secret and couldn't speak it aloud. But here's what no one knows, what no court would believe, what Jake can't bring himself to say Mark had been filming us too. Hidden cameras in our bedroom. He wanted footage of me with a real man. He'd asked me to have an affair so he could watch. When I refused, when I protected Jake instead, he turned the fantasy into a weapon. The divorce papers weren't the consequence of my cruelty. They were the consequence of his being found out. So yes, I destroyed my marriage with 7 words. I'd do it again. Because the alternative was letting a predator keep his prey, letting my daughter grow up in a house where hidden cameras were normal, where real man meant the one who controls the narrative. My daughter thinks I'm a monster. My friends believe I'm a cheater. My life is a series of closed doors and supervised visits, but Jake got out. He's alive, he's happy. And sometimes, when I'm closing up the coffee shop alone, I think that's the closest to being a real man I'll ever get. Not in the act, but in the choice. In taking the hit so someone else could run. You can judge me now. Tell me I should have gone to the police. Should have found another way. Should have been smarter, kinder, better. You're right, I should have. But I did what I could with what I had, and what I had was a secret that would destroy everyone, including the boy I was trying to save. The papers said I committed adultery. The court said I was unfit. The world says I'm a woman who destroyed her family over a sex act. Let them, I know what a real man is. It's not Mark. It's the woman who took the fall so a boy could survive. You want to know the real punchline? Mark's new wife is pregnant with a boy, and I lie awake at night wondering if he'll be a real man too, or if he'll learn from his father how to make other people pay for his secrets. Emma's birthday is next week. I bought her a necklace. It's sitting in my empty apartment, waiting for a supervised visit that probably won't happen. I practice what I'll say when she asks why I said those words. I still don't have an answer she could understand. But maybe you do. Maybe you can look at the ashes of my life and see the pattern I missed, the signs I should have caught earlier, the moment I could have done something different. I see it now. I see it in the way Mark's new wife posts photos of Emma sleeping. I see it in the way Mark comments, "my beautiful family," on every picture. I see it in the basement window that still glows at 2 a.m. when I drive past, just to make sure Emma's okay. I said I'd only do anal with a real man, and in the most fucked up way possible, I got exactly what I asked for, because the man I married was never real at all, just a carefully constructed lie that took me 10 years to stop believing. So here I am, no house, no daughter, no reputation, but Jake is alive. And sometimes, at 3 a.m. when the coffee shop is clean and locked, that's enough. It's not redemption. It's not justice. It's just what happened when a woman chose to be the monster so a boy didn't have to be the victim anymore. You can decide if it was worth it. I still don't know. But I do know this: the next time you hear about a woman who destroyed her marriage with a single sentence, ask yourself what she might have been trying to save. Ask yourself what secrets might be hidden in basements and deleted voicemails and the spaces between what people say and what they mean. Ask yourself what a real man really is. Because I spent 10 years married to one, and I still don't have the answer. But I know what it isn't. It isn't hidden cameras. It isn't framing your wife. It isn't making your nephew believe he's crazy. And it sure as hell isn't signing divorce papers the morning after your wife finally tells you the truth, even if she didn't use the words you deserve to hear. I'm waiting for the day Emma asks me directly, when she's older, when she understands that sometimes mothers become monsters to keep their children from growing up in houses with locked basement doors and fathers who watch. Until then, I make lattes. I pay rent on a studio apartment that smells like old ramen. I look at photos of my daughter on a screen. I drive past my old house at night and watch the basement light. And I live with the fact that I said I'd only do anal with a real man, and the universe called my bluff in the worst possible way. Mark got his divorce. He got his clean slate. He got his new wife and new son and his basement that nobody questions. I got to be the bitch who emasculated her husband. The slut who went after his nephew. But Jake got to live. So maybe, just maybe, that makes me the realest man of all.